Cuban President Raul Castro demanded that the United States return the U.S. naval base at Guantanamo Bay before the two nations re-establish normal relations. Castro also said the U.S. should lift the half-century trade embargo on Cuba and compensate his country for damages in exchange for reconciliation. Castro told a summit of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States on Wednesday that Cuba and the U.S. are working toward full diplomatic relations, but if these problems aren't resolved, this diplomatic rapprochement wouldn't make any sense. Castro and U.S. President Barack Obama announced on December 17 that they would move toward renewing full diplomatic relations by reopening embassies in each other's countries. The two governments held negotiations in Havana last week to discuss both the reopening of embassies and the broader agenda of re-establishing normal relations. Obama has loosened the trade embargo with a range of measures designed to increase economic ties with Cuba and increase the number of Cubans who don't depend on the communist state for their livelihoods. The Obama administration says removing barriers to U.S. travel, remittances and exports to Cuba is a tactical change that supports the United States' unaltered goal of reforming Cuba's single-party political system and centrally planned economy. Cuba has said it welcomes the measures but has no intention of changing its system. List of Cuban demands. Castro emphasized an even broader list of Cuban demands, saying that while diplomatic ties may be re-established, normal relations with the U.S. depend on a series of concessions that appear highly unlikely in the near future. He demanded that the U.S. end the transmission of anti-Castro radio and television broadcasts and deliver just compensation to our people for the human and economic damage that they suffered. Demands also include an end to U.S. support for Cuban dissidents and Cuba's removal from the U.S. list of state sponsors of terrorism. Castro also wants the U.S. to pay hundreds of millions of dollars in damages for losses caused by the embargo. The re-establishment of diplomatic relations is the start of a process of normalizing bilateral relations, but this will not be possible while the blockade still exists. While they don't give back the territory illegally occupied by the Guantanamo naval base, Castro said. Castro's call for an end to the U.S. embargo drew support at the summit from the presidents of Brazil, Ecuador, El Salvador, Nicaragua and Venezuela. Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff also praised the effort by the leaders of Cuba and the U.S. to improve relations. The two heads of state deserve our recognition for the decision they made, beneficial for Cubans and Americans, but, most of all, for the entire continent, she said.